Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a subscriber submission, an interview, but a submission from one of their friends or relatives, actually. A very, very interesting and terrifying encounter. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. Really does help, and guys, it definitely matters. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Alright guys, today's upload is a subscriber sharing a relative's recent hunting experience. And it is, well, quite terrifying. I do say so myself. Let's get into it. All right, everybody. Today I have a subscriber who has been on the channel before to share his experiences that he has had out in the woods of Tazewell and Buchanan, Virginia. He reached out to me the other day talking about another incident just a couple counties over. And DJ, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jeff. Thanks for asking.
It's great to hear your voice. I haven't talked to you in a while. And you reached out and you said, you got to text me back or I'm not going to tell you this encounter. And I said, after I feel a little better, I'll get in touch. And, you know, so we talked a little bit tonight. You told me the encounter. It's pretty interesting and it's actually terrifying. So the mic is yours, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. My wife has a friend who has a cousin that lives out in Carroll County, Virginia. And he goes to, my wife's, she goes to church a lot, and they've been to a lot of revivals, tent revivals and church functions. And anyway, my friend's wife talks about him all the time because he knows he's a hunter like I am. And he was out there hunting. And she told her this, just the other day when I messaged you, just as soon as I found out, I'll let you know. Yep. He was muzzle loading, and he was either state forest or national forest or county. Anyway, it wasn't private land.
Okay.
And he packed all his stuff in there. He packed what they call a climber tree stand, one that you stand up in as you go and you inch up like a worm, and the back of it actually takes a bite into the bark on the other side, and that's how you go up the tree. There's no ladders or no extensions to it. And he was an evening hunter, so he went in, a few hours before dark, because that's when they usually mostly move. And he was sitting there, and he was getting ready to get out. Well, anyway, he heard deer blow. They do that when they suspect or smell a human presence, or if they smell a predator.
Kind of like a warning to the other deer.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And he heard them all of a sudden start running down the ridge. And according to his description, he said it was about 100 to 125 yards. He estimated to the top of that ridge where he was down in that little gully. And then he heard something else chasing behind him, because the deer went down over that little hill and down into a valley. And that's when he heard it. That's when he could tell, he said before they sounded like just a herd of, his way he put a herd of elephants.
Okay.
Going through the woods. And he didn't know beforehand, that they were being pursued.
Real quick, I know that you weren't with him, but I'm just wondering if you got like how high in the tree was he? And he's just standing on like a thick branch, correct? He's not on a platform or anything.
No, he's actually, the bottom of his tree stand is the platform.
Oh, okay, okay.
And he said he was about 24 foot up in the tree, so he was pretty good ways up there. He
Pretty
said
good,
he was in a,
decent vantage point to see around too.
oh yeah, he said he was over 20 foot. He estimated between 20 and 22 foot.
Okay.
And he said when he stood up, it was probably about 27 feet total from the bottom of the platform to his head. But anyway, he said that he didn't know that, that they were being pursued till the deer being ahead of it, I guess whatever, what it was, and they cut over and went down into the little valley down below that ridge. And that's when he said they stopped and started blowing again. And then after they got out of hearing, he still heard whatever it was pursuing them. That's how he knew there was something else there. Because previously he was getting all his stuff together, and he said he had a little hanger. He drills into the tree. It actually digs into the tree, and you can hang your bow, crossbow, weapon, whatever on it. And he was getting all his stuff together. And he said he carries an accessory bag, basically a fanny pack with, extra powder, already what they call in speed loaders, with the bullet and the cap and all that, and the bullet starter. And he was getting everything around and getting ready to come down before this started. Well, he said after that it stopped. And then he heard something, and it sounded like it was coming his way. Well, it got down there, and he said he could hear something going around the base of his tree. Well, he said he had one of them headlamps on that most people are familiar with. You've got an elastic band that goes on your head, hat, or whatever, and you can adjust the beam. And he said he kept trying to see what it was, because he said he knew he heard, it sounded like good weight, because there was a couple small sticks there that he heard crack and break. But he said every time that thing would go around the tree, he would try to spot it with a light, and it would somehow manage, it was that fast that it would actually get out of the beam before he could get a look at what it was. And then finally he caught, a few hair color of the fur one time, and he thought it was a coyote. It just kept going around and around, and every time it was just a cat and mouse game, basically. And he said it started growling. Well, as it was growling, he said he could tell a difference, because it would growl. I guess it was going up and down, extending from its feet, all fours, whatever, to standing up. Because he said he could tell a difference in the sound. Would be close to the ground 1 minute, but it sounded like, that it grew 6, 7 foot in the next one. And he said finally he got a look at it. He got a corner of the corner of its jaw, the bill, its snout, that is, and a corner of the forehead. So he got just a brief look at it. But he knew that it was awful big. That what he seen was bigger than the standard coyote. So he thought it was just what they call a coy wolf. If nobody's familiar with it, it's when a domestic pet breeds with a wild coyote, and that's their offspring. Well, then he said that the growling got worse. And then he said that he started hearing the bark, not shake, but sound like something was climbing the bark. And he actually said he started feeling, he said he was in a big tree. He said he reckoned the tree was about, he told his cousin, that my wife's friend, that he only had one, he was on the last catch in that tree stand that was able to fit around that tree. And he said as thick as it was, he started feeling actually the tree vibrate from the weight. And said he shined the light and finally got a look at it. And his description, it was a Dogman. He said the thing was actually climbing a tree. Well, down here, our laws, are pretty lax as far as, Second Amendment and the right to have a firearm. They're pretty good. They're decent. But, you're not allowed to carry a conventional, what they call a conventional firearm, as a handgun or a rifle or a shotgun during crossbow or muzzleloader, and this was black powder. This is the last week of it. Matter of fact, it ends today and rifle opens tomorrow. But he told my wife's friend, his cousin, that he carried a 38. He said he always carried a 38 where he went. He said he didn't care, what the laws meant. That, I agree, a single shot muzzleloader is all you got, one shot. And he carried it for protection. Well, he had that in his hand, but he said he couldn't get a good shot. And he was scared, and finally he said he was shooting around to try to scare it away from the tree. He said he fired, I think, 2 shots he didn't really want to hit it. He said he just wanted to try to scare it away from the tree so he could watch it run so he would know when he was safe to come down. Well, finally, he had 3 shots left, and he said this went on for, he estimated about 10, 15 minutes. He said he was actually getting tired of, his head moving around trying to get a spot on it. And finally, he seen it. And he said he shot all 3 times, but he said he knows for a fact that he hit it once. He said he hit it going like at an angle straight down where our collarbone is, right there into the top of the neck off of the left shoulder.
Okay.
And he said it had a pretty good sized mane on it. He said he knew he hit it though. He seen the fur separate and move where the bullet made contact. Whether it penetrated or deep, I don't know. But he said that it yelped. It yelped just like a dog, but sort of like the way he estimated. He said he's never heard nothing that loud before, and it scared him. I mean, but he hollered so loud, and he said it got off the tree. Well, with all the commotion, when it hollered, when the projectile made contact with it, it scared him. Of course, he jumped too. In doing so, his hat and his headlamp, the hat which contained his headlamp, fell off, and it fell to the forest floor, and it just stayed there, stationary.
Yeah.
Well, he said he heard it take off running. Well, he thought, he could get down. He said he was scared. He waited up there anyway, because he was scared to let his pulse come back down and, catch his breath. And he said when he thought it was safe, he was going to try to climb. Even without a light, the light laying there at the base of the tree. Well, said he heard something else start running toward his tree. And he said he thought he heard it go around it once, but he wasn't for sure. But knowing he couldn't put a light on it he said after it got so far from his tree, he didn't hear it no more. So he thought it was actually sitting there watching to see if he'd come out of the tree. So he didn't know what he was going to do. So he sat there in that tree stand all night long. And finally, he said eventually, he said he thinks he fell asleep about a little after 4 o'clock. And he said the sun coming up is what woke him up, the first rays of dawn. Actually, he said when it was coming over the horizon, it hit him straight in the eyeballs, so that's what woke him up. And by the time he stood up, and done stretches, because he said he ain't never been in so much pain from being stiff and then, in a very awkward position. He said that he'd never seen or felt nothing like that before.
Right.
And he actually said where he fell asleep, he was so cold, he actually had to rub his hands on his knees to actually get him to move better because he was that cold. Well, he looked around and everything, was normal. The light was still there laying on the forest floor. It had burned out. He said it was still going, but it was dim. And I know this because, like I said, it's a friend of my wife's friend. It's actually her cousin. So, I've heard about a lot for him. I've talked to him a time or two. He's an avid hunter and a good churchgoer. He's a very good man. And his belief, is actually what kept him going. He said he prayed, but he said he knew he got a very bad feeling, when this thing come around, because he said it's just like somebody jerking the rug out from under you. Mm-hmm. Well, he finally got down, and he said he had to sit there a few minutes and just kept warming himself up and rubbing his knees and his elbows and his fingers getting warm to where he felt comfortable enough to move. So he got all his stuff, including his tree stand. He said that's the reason that he had to try to loosen his doings, because he had to carry his stand back out. And evidently, his cousin called because he didn't come home. He's single. He was married, but he's divorced, and she's about the only one that keeps tabs on him because that's her first cousin. They're real close, like brother and sister, she says.
Right.
And he didn't, respond to any of the texts. He'd actually said he left his phone in the truck. And she was worried. She didn't know what happened to him. She'd already called, the local police to see if, there's any accidents reported. She gave him a brief description. And, of course, they replied, unless it's 24 hours or so, we can't do nothing, blah, 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 file a missing persons report. Mm-hmm. But then she told him, that this, he was hunting where he was last at, because they asked, his last known coordinates. And she told him, well, they put her in touch with either a forest warden, a game warden, or somebody who worked for the local DNR that way. So she actually said where he hunted, and well, I reckon it's the only vehicle there. And he said, according to her, he told her that as he was coming up the last bit of the bank to actually top out on the road where everybody parked, he said that this person pulled in. Asked who he was, and verified it by his identification, asked him what happened to him, if he needed to go to the hospital or file a report. And he said no, that he was just sore. He wanted to warm up, get some hot coffee, and get the breakfast, take a hot shower, and go to bed. But he had to give a brief description of where he was at, what happened. And as he was telling this, he actually admitted to the officer, the forest officer, that he carried a weapon, that aside from his muzzleloader, that he had a 5-shot 38 special revolver. And he actually stopped in mid-sentence and said, "You have what?" And he repeated it. He said, "Do you have it on your persons now?" He said, "Yeah." He pulled it out of his bag and showed it to him. All 5 casings were spent. It was empty. It shot it, like he said. He actually was going to write this man a ticket, a citation, for carrying a concealed weapon, a conventional firearm, when he was hunting with a muzzleloader, because it was against the law. Didn't care where the man lived or died or what happened or anything. Even after he described what he seen or what done, he told him, "No, you seen a coy dog." And I reckon there was a few words exchanged, by the officer, and I reckon he got loud and spoke up and let him know, he goes to church, he don't appreciate being talked to like that. He's not going to be talked to like that. My taxes pay your salary, and you work for him. I reckon he laid into him, but from what he described, this was a younger fella. He hadn't been out of the academy, or he said training, maybe just not even 5 months yet. So he's still new on the job, and I reckon he hasn't learned a bedside manner of how to treat somebody as of yet. He was more worried about writing a ticket than he was, his own personal health.
Right.
Well, the way he laid into it, I reckon he knocked the ticket book out of his hand and everything. And after it was all said and done, this guy apologized to him. He said he didn't mean to be abrupt with him, that he should have listened more before he started making assessments. And he actually pulled the ticket out, because it wasn't about halfway filled out, and tore it up in front of him and said, just next time don't be doing this. And he told him, he said, "I'm not hunting no more." He said, "You cannot pay me to go back in these woods or any woods in this state ever again until something is done about this." He said, "Oh, you just seen a big coy dog." He said, "A coy dog don't stand 6.5 foot tall," and he said, "It don't weigh 300 to 400 pounds, and it don't climb trees."
Right.
And he said, the officer was young, but he said he got, pop-eyed in the face, like, he'd never heard nothing like that. But at the same time, after he got to talking, he was listening to the officer talk, he let on like he knew what was going on, but he couldn't comment.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, it wasn't the first time that he's heard a story like this, or has been told, or word of mouth, or his fellow co-workers. And, he said, "I apologize on behalf, of this, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "I hope you continue to enjoy the great outdoors." And, he just told me, he said, "I'm done." He said, "My faith was the only thing that carried me through." He said, "God and his angels were on my shoulders that night." He said, "If it wasn't for them, when this gun in my hand, this thing would have climbed a tree and probably eat me."
Wow.
And he said the only thing he said when it comes to the future of him going back out hunting anymore or anything like that in the woods, but what he told his cousin was, "The Lord will light my path on the decision." That's all he said.
Right. It's almost like he made his mind up at that time when he left by bringing his stand with him.
Yeah, he was pretty well decided that he'd had enough. I mean, I can't imagine. I think he said he got in the tree about a little after 2 p.m. that evening.
Right.
And he said he met this when he was coming up. He said it was about 7:35 from the time he had walked out and got back to his vehicle that this game warden or forest warden, whatever, DNR pulled in.
So a good 18 hours.
Yes. Not eating, not drinking, because he said, he finished his last drink right before he got down. That's what he was doing, was getting up, bagging up, his sandwich that he brought with him, and finishing the last of his water off and putting it in a bag to put in his pack to come down, because he brings his trash out with him. And he said that's when he started hearing a noise, and that's when all this started. So you can imagine being stuck in a sitting position with your legs crossed and can't even extend to lay down that many hours stuck in the top of a tree about 25 feet up in the air. You know, he was malnourished. He was dehydrated, I'm sure.
Terrified.
Yeah, terrified on top of that. Scared to death. You know, fed up with the way the way that the guy responded to him.
Yeah.
No tact or respect at all.
Yeah, it's strange because when you had told me when we were talking, and that law just doesn't make sense to me, especially, you know, I could understand with like maybe rifle season, but muzzleloader, you'd think you'd need something extra, you know, because it doesn't, it's a lot more intricate to load a muzzleloader than just to, you know, if you've got, you know, a regular rifle that's not semi-automatic, but it's, you know, wow, it just, that doesn't make any sense to me, but it's a good thing he had it with him.
Right.
And it's a good placement too for that shot, especially with a small caliber like that, you know?
Yeah. He said it was just a 38 with hollow points. And it's like you said, he seen the fur part on that, you know, on that bone right there on top of the shoulder.
Yeah.
And that's when it yelped. And he said couldn't see nothing else because when it yelped with that, he said like a yelp and a scream. Yeah. You know, and him being right over top, it scared the pee-willy out of him. He jerked back. The hat and the light went one way, and the Dogman went the other. So, you know, not only was he stuck in a tree, he couldn't see nothing.
Right.
You know, something else come up and went around the tree. Then he said it went off a little ways, and then it stopped. He knew it was there, but he couldn't tell what it was or what. So he was stuck in that tree all night till daylight.
And you know, I just thought about this. Being a church-going guy, probably never really heard of or thought of Dogman. I mean, he probably thought he was seeing a demon at that point. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what he told his cousin, my wife's friend. He thought it was a demon.
Wow.
Until he got to doing some studying on it, and then, you know, she told, you know, him about some of the things that go on. She's heard and seen, and I've seen stuff and given a name for it. And he actually did his own research on his computer and found out what he called a demon is a canine variant, you know, a bright walking Dogman.
Yeah.
He still called it a furry demon. That's what he calls it still, even though he knows it's referred to as Dogman. And it's, my opinion, a biological animal, you know, a flesh and bone. He calls it a furry demon.
How far away is this county from Tazewell, Buchanan?
Oh, it's quite a ways. Carroll County, I'd say is about right at close to being halfway across the state. It's southeast from the where we're at now. It's, if anybody's ever heard of Grayson County. Grayson County is the last county in that situation in the state before you exit the state line and into North Carolina. And Carroll County is right off to the right and right above Grayson. So it joins, he's right close to the North Carolina border.
Okay.
And you know as well as I do, I don't exactly know where it's at on the map, but anything north to the Virginia border out there, you're getting close to the Dismal Swamp.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. I mean, he said it's a lot of land in there.
Yeah, and the Great Dismal Swamp, there's that creature that, you know, I've got that she's a subscriber, but she was a sheriff's deputy, got in a car accident and broke her back, and she became a game warden, and she's dedicated probably the last 20 years of her life looking into the beast of Bladenboro and this other kind of cat-like, bipedal cat-like creature that's supposed to be out there. She's and there's a lot of encounters and experiences out that way too. How deep is that for woods, like compared to because I mean, I've talked about Tazewell a lot, just going from all of the disappearances and stuff like that have recently, or not, well, in the last year and a half, 2 years. But how deep is the woods compared to your area, your neck of the woods there?
About the same, if not more. He said when he turned off on this logging road, this gravel road, to go to where he parks and then walks and start hunting, when he turns on this road, there's no other homes out this way. There's no houses, there's no nothing.
Is that considered Appalachia still, or?
Oh, no, I wouldn't think so. Okay. I mean, several people have very different ideas of Appalachia. They say the whole state of Virginia is Appalachia. Then you have the Appalachian Mountains, which is a certain spot of longitude and latitude on this state that extends on up. Then you have the Appalachian Trail. So many people say it is and it ain't. I have no idea. But he said it's a lot of woods in there. And he said where it was like a bluff where he said it come to an end and there's a big circle right there, a turnaround spot, or where you park, that it's sort of up in an elevation. So when you look straight out, it's sort of scenic, so to speak. And he said the only thing within sight of this place, and he said he knows he can see of 10 miles straight out, he said he sees a radio antenna at about, he estimated about 3/4 of a mile out in there. And he said that's the only thing showing that there's even man is even close to this area.
Wow, that's incredible.
He said if it wasn't, for his GPS, when he first started hunting this place, if you were to stay there at nightfall or get turned around, he said there's no telling where you would end up.
Yeah. I'm blown away by that. I mean, this poor guy is, just probably never heard of Dogman, just going out hunting, doing his thing like he's done for years on end, muzzleloader. So he's obviously, when you're a hunter, in my eyes, when you muzzleload, you hunt, rifle, you're dedicated at that point, because it's more than just hunting,
Well, he's the kind of person who's so good a fella, not just because he goes to church.
Right.
When he's usually at least filled one buck tag during muzzleloader before conventional rifle season comes in, like where it comes in at sunup tomorrow. He's hunting for HTH, Hunters for the Homeless.
Yep.
And anything that he's lucky enough to harvest, he donates to people that don't have a lot of food, that don't have a home, to help feed them during the holidays. I mean, that's the kind of individual this man is.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's a terrifying experience. All experiences are terrifying, big, small, whatever. But to not know what you're looking at and being that church going and looking down and seeing, a Dogman, you don't know the eye color, because I'm sure he didn't say anything about that or whatnot, but I'm sure there was some shine.
Gold.
So
that's what he said, gold. Amber, in other words.
Automatic demon. And geez,
yeah, that's what he said he thought it was.
That's terrifying. That is wow.
Nobody knows for sure, hypothetically, what a demon looks like. We all have our own ideas. We know it's the enemy. We know, our worst nightmares can't describe the amount of looks that would go in, but a Dogman has the basics. If you've seen one at a distance, the first thing you're going to think, because of the ears tall, that's got horns. Then it's got teeth. Then it's got mean-looking eyes. It's got claws. It's big. It's tall. So, it's got the first few animates of a demon, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, wow. It's truly a very, very creepy experience, and I feel real bad for that guy. I really do.
Yeah, he said that he goes to every church outing, he goes to every service just about, but he don't go during the week when they have during the night service in the week. But he said after this, he's going to go to every one of them. Yeah. He'll be the first one in the door and the last one out, he says.
I can imagine. Wow. Well, if you talk to the fella, let him know that there's a whole bunch of people out here that have had experiences just like him, and that he's not alone. And I'm sure you will anyway.
I'll let him know. He's a good man. Just to see how he proceeds from here.
Yeah.
If he's actually, so far, according to what Sarah has told my wife, that he's actually took an interest in it. Now he's wanting to research and know everything about it.
Yeah, there's two sides to it. You either become obsessed or you become you just kind of introvert inside and don't want to talk about it, think about it, or anything. So,
right.
I'm sure he'll be digging deep into the cryptid world now. So.
Oh, no doubt about that.
DJ, man, that was a terrifying experience. If you do talk to him, let him know that he's not alone, and share the channel with him and let him know that there's good folk here that, in the comment section, if he ever needs to talk, he's got you, and, give him my email address, and, there's people out there to talk to. So
Will do, my friend.
All right, do me a favor, don't hang up. I'd like to talk to you for a little bit after this, but thank you once again for coming on and sharing this experience with us. Have a happy Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you after. And is there anything that you'd like to say before we end the interview?
Well, I got tomorrow is conventional firearms season for deer. Everybody listening, if you're out there and you're a hunter or just a sport like to hike during this time of year, please be careful. Absolutely. And if you don't have a weapon with you, keep your faith in the good Lord when you do this.
Yeah. But bring a weapon. Bring something with you to protect yourself, please. Because
exactly.
I believe, I'm a firm believer in faith, but sometimes, you need that extra wallop behind that prayer. So.
Ain't that the truth?
All right, buddy. Well, it was great having you on, and
I appreciate it.
Don't hang up. I want to talk to you.
All right. You have a good holiday.
You as well, my friend.
All right. Bye-bye.
So, imagine, it's so incredible and horrifying. You've dedicated your life to going to church, to being a good person, and you really haven't heard much of cryptids. I'm sure he'd heard of Bigfoot and stuff like that, but just Dogman is a word that just doesn't exist in his vocabulary. And you're hunting, doing something that you enjoy. Obviously, he's a super good person if he goes hunting and donates his meat to the homeless during holiday seasons. And you're up on your stand and you see this dog-like creature standing somewhere between 6 to 8 feet tall, trying to climb the tree that you're in. A tree that nonetheless was so large that while climbing it, you had to use the last click on your climbing strap to get up it. And this thing's shaking that tree. Long pointed ears, glowing amber colored eyes. All you're thinking is, there is a demon in front of me, Lord. Get me through this evening. Get me through this experience, please. And then you do. You get through it. And you become like all of us, just fixated on the truth and trying to get as much information that you can get on these creatures. Wow. I'm very spiritual. I obviously believe in a higher power, a great spirit, God, whatever. But to be, church going Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday, whatever, going to tent revivals and this and that, that's the dedication, and to have your world spun like that, to see an actual demon in front of you. the Dogman. Not cool. Not cool at all. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's experience as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I want to thank DJ again for coming and sharing this experience with us. It was very thought-provoking, actually. So, with that, my friends, please stay safe. Thank you for all of your support. It truly means the world to me. And may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life. And once again, I can't say it enough. Stay safe.